'Twas brillig in the slithy toves, did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, in the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub board and shun, the Frimuous bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tolgy wood, and baubled as it came. 1-2, 1-2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, halloo calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig in the slithy toves, did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, in the mome raths outgrabe. That is a poem called Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. And I don't know if half of that was pronounced correctly, because he made up a lot of words in that poem. But Lewis Carroll is very famous for being the author of Alice in Wonderland, and he was a heavy inspiration for the D&D module, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is a Feywild module that takes place in a Fey realm called Prismere that is very similar to Wonderland. And it's an incredible module that I really recommend for new DMs, and it was the first module that I personally DM'd. So today I want to tell a story of me, a new DM, running Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and being very excited about the Jabberwock, which is a CR13 monster inside the book that has some really great abilities. So this is the Jabberwock stat block, and this is directly from Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and this specific screenshot is directly from D&D Beyond. So it is a CR13 monster. It has an AC of 18, 115 hit points, which doesn't seem very high, but it does have legendary resistances 3 times a day, and it regenerates 10 HP at the start of its turn. If it takes slashing damage, the trait doesn't function until the next turn, which is a bit tough because a lot of players do slashing damage. Like, it's a very common damage type. And then it has a few cool features. It has a cool ability called Confusing Bauble. It baubles to itself like the Lewis Carroll poem, and any creature within 30 feet has to make a charisma saving throw with a DC 18, so pretty high charisma saving throw. On a failed save, it can't take reactions until the start of its next turn, and you have to roll a d4 to determine what it does on its current turn. So a 1 to 2, the creature does nothing. A 3, the creature does nothing except use all of its movement speed to move in a random direction. And on a 4, the creature either makes 1 melee attack against a random creature it can see, or does nothing if there's no visible creature within its reach. The Jabberwock also has an ability to track any creature it has wounded in the last 24 hours, and it knows the distance and direction of them as long as the two of them are on the same plane of existence. So as long as they're both in Prismere. Now, I don't think this ability is very useful in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, because you're probably fighting the Jabberwock inside the palace at the end of the game. Now, the Jabberwock has a couple of attacks. It can make 2 wind attacks, which do decent damage, an average of 21 slashing damage. It can make a tail attack, which can do an average of 10 bludgeoning damage. Or it can do a fiery gaze. So unless it's blinded, the Jabberwock emits a 120-foot long, 5-foot wide line of fire from its eyes. Each creature in that line must make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw, taking an average of 31 fire damage, so 78 on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. So this is pretty much just a lightning spell, where you can shoot a lightning bolt in a straight line, but it is a really good ability that does a lot of damage. And then you have to recharge that after you use it. The Jabberwock also gets 3 legendary actions, which could be a tail attack, a wind attack, or a wing attack. So those are all pretty good. The wing attack can knock somebody prone. Now, I was super excited to use this stat block, and my players did not allow me to. So, there is a part of Wild Beyond the Witchlight where there's like a goblin market. It's near one of the hags, and you can buy candy and stuff from these goblins. Now, the players understood that the Feywild is not trustworthy, but they still bought candy from a goblin. They knew better than to eat the candy. And the player that bought the candy had it in his back pocket that he was going to use the candy against an enemy. This is where it kind of goes poorly. The players entered the castle. They saw the Jabberwock. The Jabberwock was sleeping. The players were trying to figure out a way to get past the Jabberwock without waking it up, because they had heard stories of the Jabberwock in the campaign leading up to this. And they knew it was a dangerous monster. And they also knew that they had a big fight coming up. So fighting the Jabberwock might not make the most sense. One of the players had the Snicker Snack sword, which in the poem is called the Vorpal sword, but they call it Snicker Snack in Wild Beyond the Witchlight because in the poem it says, and it went Snicker Snack. So they have the Vorpal sword that is supposed to be used to kill the Jabberwock. Like, that's the reason the sword's in the game. Because on a natural 20, I think it just decapitates whoever you're fighting. I'm going to double check that. But I'm pretty sure it just decapitates whoever you're fighting. It is a sentient sword. So it has hearing, dark vision, can speak, read, and write. And it craves the destruction of evil dragons and urges you to seek out the dragons and slay them. It has a fickle personality. So if you miss on attack rolls 3 times in a row, it can end the attunement. And you can try to regain the trust each long rest. But when you use the weapon to attack a creature that at least has 1 head and roll a 20 on the attack roll, you cut off one of the creature's heads. So ideally, you're fighting the Jabberwock. You roll a natural 20, you decapitate the Jabberwock. The creature dies if it can't survive without a lost head, which the Jabberwock can't. The reason that is probably in there that way is because you could fight a Hydra and use the Snicker Snack, but I haven't seen anybody use this in another campaign because it's kind of broken. Imagine you have a fighter and they just roll a natural 20 against your other BBEG and then you just immediately decapitate them. There is the option that the DM can decide that the creature is too big. You can use a legendary action, but they still take 6d8 slashing damage, so it's still a lot of damage. Like, it's a lot. So they had the Snicker Snack. They could have used it in this fight. But instead, one of the players is like, hey, let's feed this dragon a piece of candy. So they throw this piece of candy out. The player uses Minor Illusion to create the illusion of a piece of like steak. Because the Jabberwock obviously is a carnivore. So they create the illusion of like a piece of steak right there. The Jabberwock wakes up. I think they woke him up somehow. Sees a steak on the ground. Doesn't see the players who are hiding around like a corner. Comes over, eats the piece of candy. This is where it got bad for me. There's a piece of candy at the Goblin Market that just doesn't have a saving throw. So there's a piece of candy you can get from the Goblin Market that just doesn't have a saving throw. And that is what I rolled on the wall table when they bought this candy at the Goblin Market. The ability is you are targeted by a polymorph spell and you automatically fail. So you don't get to make that saving throw that you would normally make against polymorph. You become a butterfly using a bad stat block. So the bad stat block won't have like dark vision, echolocation, or bite. You're just a butterfly. The Jabberwock eats the piece of candy that makes it a butterfly. Now, I'm not the kind of DM to just tell the players they can't do something. They did a good job of coming up with a solution for this encounter that is supposed to be kind of deadly for the players. I'm pretty sure the players are like level 8 at this point. A CR13 is going to be a tough fight. So they found a way to bypass it, and I commend them for that. But I bought the Jabberwock mini, so it was kind of frustrating in a little bit because I bought this Jabberwock mini that just became a butterfly. Like polymorph lasts for a while too. It lasts for an hour. They got through the rest of the castle in an hour. The Jabberwock was just a butterfly the entire time. And I could have made it take them longer than an hour to navigate the castle. I could have had the Jabberwock join the final fight in the throne room. But that just didn't seem fair to the players. Like, they made a good call by feeding this candy to the Jabberwock, and that's what I love about D&D, because nobody else is coming up with this decision. Nobody goes to the Goblins Market, buys a piece of candy, just doesn't eat it the entire campaign, and then at the very end, feeds it to a dragon. The players didn't know what this candy did. Like, they just didn't know. So the players feed the Jabberwock this candy, turns into a butterfly. They just walk right past the Jabberwock, and the encounter's over. But I did think this was a really fun story from Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It was one of my favorite moments in the campaign, although it did frustrate me a little bit to just have this cool stat block that I didn't get to use. But I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I had a lot of fun with Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Like I said, I really recommend it. I think it's a campaign that's kind of not talked about enough. People just kind of ignore Wild Beyond the Witchlight existing, and it is just a really fun campaign, especially if you're a new DM or you have players that don't love combat as much as they love role-playing, because there's a lot of opportunities in Wild Beyond the Witchlight to get out of encounters without fighting anybody. So I think that's really fun too. My players were kind of the opposite, so they wanted to fight everybody, but it was still a fun campaign because that is an option. It's not like you can't fight anybody in Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I did make some changes to the campaign. I would love to do a video about that eventually, but I had so much fun with this. So I hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, you can leave a like, you can subscribe and all of that stuff. But other than that, I hope everybody is having an amazing day. And until next time, peace.